Hello, today we are going to discuss is the skeletal muscle relaxant. Skeletal muscle relaxant, they are drugs that act peripherally at neuromuscular junction or or muscle fiber or centrally in the cerebrospinal axis. So these are used to reduce the muscle tone or induce muscle paralysis. Peripherally acting skeletal muscles include neuromuscular blocking agents and directly acting agents. While the centrally acting muscle relaxant are used for condition like the painful muscle spasm and spasmodic neurological disorder. Now let us discuss about the peripheral acting. The peripheral acting muscle relaxant, they are primarily used in conjugation with the general anesthetics for muscle relaxation. So they are divided into non-depolarizing blockers. The non-depolarizing blockers, they are also known as competitive blockers. The example is doxycuranium, tubocuranium, pancuranium, piperacuranium, vacuranium, atracuranium, roxycuranium, and mivacurium. Mivacurium is short acting. So these vacuronium, atracuranium, roxycuranium, they are intermediate acting, whereas pancuranium, roxycuranium, piperacuranium, they are long acting. The directly acting, the example is dantrolene. So remember, dantrolene acts directly on the muscle fibers to reduce contraction. Quinine, it is used in certain muscle conditions. So what are the two main categories of neuromuscular blocking agents? They are the non-depolarizing blockers and depolarizing blockers. Now acetylcholine, it is, we know it's a key neurohumoral transmitter in the autonomic, somatic, and central nervous system. So it plays important role in neurotransmission at several agents like the all preganglionic fibers, both both parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system use acetylcholine as neurotransmitter at preganglionic synapses. So acetylcholine, it is released at neuromuscular junction where it binds to nicotinic receptor to trigger muscle contraction. Acetylcholine, it is found in various regions such as cortex, basal ganglion, spinal cord, and other, where it modulates different neurological function. Now, what is the function of acetylcholine? It is released at the neuroeffector junction, producing biological effect like decrease heart rate, increase glandular secretion, and smooth muscle contraction. While the sympathetic stimulation, the noradrenaline is released at neuroeffector junction, causing effects like heart rate and vasoconstriction. Now, these agents, they compete with the acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction. So by blocking the acetylcholine receptor, they prevent the depolarization of muscle cell membrane, leading to muscle relaxation and paralysis. How do non depolarizing blockers work? They completely inhibit the acetylcholine from binding to nicotinic receptor, preventing the muscle depolarization. So the depolarization blockers, succinylcholine, it is a depolarizing blocker that binds to nicotinic receptor, causing initial depolarization, that is the muscle twitching, followed by sustained depolarization lead to muscle paralysis. Succinylcholine, it is hydrolyzed by plasma cholinesterase, giving it a very short duration of life. Now, what is this clinical use of these non-depolarizing muscles? So the use of uh, non-depolarizing agents, they provides longer muscle relaxation suitable for prolonged surgeries. The depolarizing agent like succinylcholine, it is used for short procedures like intubation due to the rapid onset and short duration. So why is succinylcholine preferred for short duration? Because of its rapid onset and short duration of action. Side effect, non-depolarizing agents, they can cause hypotension due to the, remember, due to the histamine release. Example is tubocurane. Need to monitor for prolonged paralysis by patient with atypical plasma cholinesterase. The depolarizing agent succinylcholine can cause muscle pain, hyperkalemia, and malignant hyperthermia. Malignant hyperthermia. So, what is the common side effect of succinylcholine? Muscle pain, hyperkalemia, malignant hyperthermia. These are the. Now, the competitive blockers bind to nicotinic cholinergic receptors at muscle and plate, preventing acetylcholine from binding. The neuromuscular receptor, it is a protein that is composed of 5 subunits: alpha 2, beta, gamma, and delta. That is that surrounds sodium channel. Normally, acetylcholine bind to 2 alpha receptors on the receptor unit, causing sodium channels to open, and muscle contraction to occur. Competitive blockers like tubocurane have similar structure to as that of acetylcholine, but they are bulkier. So they bind to receptor but do not cause the channel to open, and hence blocking the acetylcholine action. So they bind to competitive non-depolarizing blockers but prevent muscle contraction by binding to neuromuscular cholinergic receptors at muscle and plate, blocking acetylcholine from binding and opening the sodium channels. Acetylcholine relieved from motor nerves cannot activate the receptor, so end plate potential does not reach the level needed to trigger muscle action potential. As a result, muscle fails to contract in response to the nerve impulses. So what happens to the muscle contraction when competitive blockers are used? Muscle 5 fails to contract because acetyl cannot activate the receptor to generate end plate potential. Now, what are the characteristics of competitive blockers? They cause they cause fade phenomenon. That is, during partial block, the response to repeated stimulation decreases. During titanic stimulation, the response increases temporarily. That is known as post tetanic potential. What is fade phenomena? The progressive decrease in the muscle response during partial block when repeatedly stimulated is known as fade phenomena. The depolarizing blockers like the depolarizing blockers like the succinylcholine bind to neuromuscular receptors and cause initial depolarization similar to acetylcholine. So this depolarization lead to muscle twitching and fasciculation, initially followed by sustained paralysis. So which depolarizing blocker is commonly used in clinical practice? It's the succinylcholine. So depolarizing blockers bind to neuromuscular receptors and open the sodium channels, causing depolarization and initial muscle twitch. So these drugs do not dissociate rapidly from the receptors and not broken down by acetylcholinesterase, leading to prolonged depolarization state. So that create a zone of inexcitability around the end plate, preventing further muscle contraction. So how do depolarizing blockers causes paralysis? They cause prolonged depolarization of muscle and plate, leading to zone of inexcitability where muscle contraction is not possible. Now coming to type, type is phase 1 block and phase 2 block. During the phase 1 block, there is rapid onset due to persistent depolarization that causing flaccid paralysis. So recovery is quick and block is not reversed by anticholinesterase. The phase 2 block occur with prolonged use or high dose, leading to desensitization of receptors. So here the muscle fibers they will appear as repolarized, but the neurotransmitter is still blocked. Recovery is slow and block can be partially reversed by the anticholinesterase. So what is the main difference between phase 1 and phase 2 blocker? Phase 1 block is due to persistent depolarization with rapid onset, while the phase 2 block occur with prolonged use, showing receptor desensitization and slower recovery. So remember, succinylcholine it is preferred for short procedure like intubation due to its quicker onset and shorter duration. Now succinyl it is preferred for shorter duration like intubation due to its quicker response and short duration. So why is succinylcholine preferred for shorter duration? Due to its rapid onset and short duration of action. So what is effect on the skeletal muscles? The non-depolarizing blockers, they are injected intravenously, they produce muscle weakness followed by flaccid paralysis. The sequence of muscle fibers starts with the small, fast responding muscles, those in fingers and eyes, and then spread to the larger muscle groups like the hands, feet, arms, leg, neck, face, trunk, and finally the intercostal muscle and the diaphragm. The patient will stop breathing when the diaphragm gets paralyzed. And recovery, remember diaphragm function, it returns first followed by other muscle group. The rate of onset and duration of paralysis depends upon the specific drug use, the dose, the patient condition, and other factors. So the paralysis, remember, starts with the small muscles, finger, eyes, move to hand, feet, arms, legs, neck, face, trunk, intercostal muscle, and finally the diaphragm. The depolarizing blockers like succinylcholine, the first causes muscle fasciculation twitches that last a few seconds. These are not noticeable in well anesthetized patient. After fasciculation, flaccid recovery occurs rapidly. Apnea can occur within 45 to 90 minutes and it can last for 2 to 5 minutes. The paralysis, remember the. So why are the muscle fasciculation not prominent in well anesthetized patient when using depolarizing blockers? Because the patient are deeply anesthetized, making the muscle fibers less noticeable. What is train of 4 monitoring? Train of 4 monitoring stimulation involves the delivering 4 electrical impulses to peripheral nerves and observing the muscle response. So the TOF ratio measures how well the muscles they are recovering from the blockage. In practice, the reappearance of second twitch corresponds to 10% recovery, while the fourth twitch represents 25% recovery. But if tetanic and double burst stimulation, the tetanic stimulation involves delivering a rapid series of electrical impulses for 5 seconds to observe the fade in muscle response. The double burst stimulation, it's a less painful alternative involving two shorter bursts of impulses separated by a gap of 750 millisecond gap. The strength of second burst relative to first indicates the level of recovery. What is post-tetanic count? It is used in clinical setting to estimate the depth of neuromuscular blockage and guides the administration of additional drugs. So what does TOF, train of 4 ratio of 0.25 indicates? That indicates that there is 25% recovery from the neuromuscular blockage. So D-tuberculonin, remember, it has highest potential for ganglionic blockage, causing side effects like hypotension. Succinylcholine, it can stimulate autonomic ganglion due to its agonistic action on the nicotinic receptors. So D-tuberculonin has the highest potential for ganglionic blockage, causing side effects like hypotension. Succinylcholine, remember, it can stimulate autonomic ganglion due to its agonistic action on nicotinic receptors, but side effect is mild. So competitive blockers have no intrinsic activities. They are of three types: long acting, intermediate acting, and short acting. Remember that for entrance exam, the long acting are eliminated by kidney, the intermediate acting they are eliminated by liver, and short acting are inactivated by plasma cholinesterase. So remember, D-tuberculonin causes histamine release. From the mast cell, leading to side effects like the hypotension, flushing, bronchospasm, increased respiratory secretion, that is due to its bulky cationic structure. So this is due to its bulky cationic structure, not an immune response. Other blockers have different potential for histamine release, and this must be considered when choosing a drug for patients sensitive to histamine. Sometimes heparin is relieved along with the histamine from the mast cells, adding to the complexity of managing side. So there can be histamine release from the mast cells, adding to complexity of managing these effect. So what are the effects of histamine released caused by tuberculosis? It can cause hypotension, flushing, bronchospasm, and increased respiratory secretions. So why it is important to monitor neurotransmitter blockage during surgery to ensure adequate muscle relaxation and prevent complication like apnea and guiding during administration. Now, what is the effect of tuberculosis on cardiovascular system? It can cause a fall in BP due to the ganglionic blockage, block the autonomic ganglion, reducing the sympathetic tone, causing vasodilation due to the increase in release of histamine and decrease BP. So paralysis of limb and respiratory muscle reduces venous return to the heart. So hypotension could be seen due to the muscarinic receptor causing vasodilation. Prolonged use may cause cardiac arrhythmia, arrest, especially in patients with burns, soft tissue injuries, or Tetanus. What causes the initial bradycardia and subsequent tachycardia with succinylcholine? Initial bradycardia is due to the activation of the vagal ganglion, while tachycardia follows due to the stimulation of sympathetic ganglia. Competitive blockers may enhance post-operative paralysis, paralytic ileus, that is temporary paralysis of intestinal muscle after abdominal surgeries by reducing the gastrointestinal mobility. How can competitive neuromuscular blockage affect the GIT post-operatively? They may induce paralytic ileus by reducing GIT motility through ganglionic receptors. So no longer tuberculin used due to the prominent histamine release, ganglionic blocking, cardiovascular action, and long duration of paralysis. The most commonly used muscle relaxant is succinylcholine. It is used for tracheal intubation due to its rapid onset and predictable recovery. The pancuronium, it is a long-acting with good cardiovascular stability, primarily used in prolonged surgeries with minimal cardiovascular effect. Vecuronium, remember vecuronium, it has a shorter duration of action, minimal cardiovascular effect, and it is used in routine surgeries. Atracuranium, remember, it has a rapid, it is spontaneous non-enzymatic degradation, making it susceptible for patients with liver or kidney diseases. So which neuromuscular blockade is preferred for patient with liver or kidney diseases? It's the atracuranium due to its degeneration by non-enzymatic degradation. Other is rocuranium. Rocuranium is a newer non-depolarizing blockade with rapid onset and intermediate duration of action. Can be used as an alternate to succinylcholine for tracheal intubation without disadvantage of depolarizing block and cardiovascular changes. Other is mevacuranium. Mevacuranium, it is metabolized by acetylcholinesterase. It has fast onset and shorter duration. Now let us discuss the drug interaction. Thiopentane, sodium, and succinylcholine should not be mixed in same syringe due to chemical reaction. Remember that succinylcholine and thiopentane sodium should not be mixed together in same syringe due to its chemical reaction. Potential competitive blockers. Fluorinated anesthetics can predispose to phase 2 blockage by succinylcholine and cause malignant hyperthermia in generally predisposed individuals. Aminoglycosides potentiate the effect of competitive blocker by reducing acetylcholine release from the nerves endings. Other like tetracycline, polypeptide antibodies, clindamycin, lincomycin also synergize with the competitive blockers. Flushing is the common with the D-tubercularian prostate, possible with atracuranium and mevacuranium.